So again, thank you for joining me today for our FAME kickoff webinar. It's very exciting. So we're going to go through a couple things, commonly asked questions, and just show you a few resources that are available to you as FAME Cohort 2, and if you're joining us from Cohort 1, also Cohort 1 participants. So if your school was not a FAME school last year, then you are considered Cohort 2, just to let you know. There are always questions about that. My name is Melissa Finkel. I am an education specialist here at MSDE. I am the person that sends the emails to you, your school, your facilitators, and I am the main point of contact here at MSDE. So I just wanted to start you off welcoming you to the cohort. We are over 600 strong thus far, and we continue to grow. So you will be amongst a large number of educators from across the state. And they will serve as a great resource for you both in content and informative assessment practices. But I wanted to kick it off with a message from Dr. Lowry. I've mentioned this before, but Dr. Lowry firmly believes in formative assessment and FAME as a way of improving student learning. And she made us a short video explaining what formative assessment is and why it's so important for Maryland teachers and students.
Formative assessment is a process teachers use to collect real-time, low-stakes data on student learning. Teachers gather these data through observation, analyzing student work, and listening to discussions. We know differentiation is critical for meeting the diverse needs of our students. However, it is difficult to differentiate until teachers know what students know. Formative assessments help teachers pinpoint the degree of individual learning, and they assess the learning in ways that do not feel like assessments to students. Teachers then interpret the evidence. They use it to guide their instruction and feedback. That's why formative assessment has been described as teaching with the lights on. It helps teachers to see more clearly what each student needs. We ask not only, what do you know, but how do you know that? Teachers using formative assessment push students to explain their thinking and to provide evidence of their problem solving. Right now in Maryland, we are in the process of implementing college and career-ready standards. FAME, professional learning, supports teachers in this transition. It emphasizes instructional and assessment practices that engage students in goal setting, self-assessment, and incorporating peer and teacher feedback into their learning process.
So just a short intro from our superintendent of schools to welcome you to the FAME cohort. I want to start by talking about what the expectations are for FAME and what our goals are, because really, if we're expecting you to take on this work and create this change in your school, you should know what the outcomes are, obviously, because that is how we frame formative assessment, is planning with the end in mind. So the learning outcomes are to understand how formative assessment fits within a comprehensive assessment system. We do not advocate getting rid of summative. Every type of assessment has its purpose, but we say that formative assessment really has a strong purpose, and its goal is to help you know where students are at every point in their learning. Understanding the importance of intentional lesson planning, embedding formative assessment into existing classroom routines. It is so important that you all understand that nobody is asking you to start from scratch. Many of you are really strong, experienced teachers who have routines and methods and styles that are individual and unique, and we encourage you to embed formative assessment practices into what you're already doing. To deepen the use of formative data to adjust instruction or provide descriptive feedback, and understanding the features of a collaborative classroom culture. All of these learning outcomes are really your goals as well as a teacher. They're really just ways to improve what you're already doing and deepen your understanding of the formative assessment process. So a lot of our questions end up being around the professional learning design. So I want you to understand the expectations, but also what each part of this course is and how they all work together. So the first part is the self-study online module. This is your independent work. We call them asynchronous because you are doing this on your own time. Each module takes about 5 hours to complete. So you have 5 modules. That tells you about 4 to 5 hours module, about 20, 25 hours total throughout the entire school year working on the module. And there are videos on our YouTube page giving you a preview of the modules. They will be up and ready to use very soon. The first module focuses on foundations, so you can all start on the very same page because we know that it's important to figure out where people are and make sure that we start our conversation at the same place. Then we move into planning. And we look at deliberate planning through a formative assessment planning template, and you will work with your colleagues on this process. Module 3 is focusing on evidence, the collection of data, and the use of that information. Module 4 is working on collaboration within your classroom and across your school. And then Module 5 really focuses on next steps, and those are personal next steps for you as a professional, and they're also next steps for your school and your district. So it's thinking about how to move this work forward, and it's what our Cohort 1 schools ended with last year and has informed some of the work and the thoughts that they are doing over the summer. Then we move to the application activities. The application activities are where you take everything you've learned, kind of like the homework, and you apply your learning to your own classroom. We always say that formative assessment is content agnostic. That means that any content area can work on formative assessment. So you will work with colleagues in your school or across the state that are in different content areas than you. I have seen math teachers working with English, science, theater teachers. So it's really across the state, across the content areas. And that cross-content collaboration really makes it a stronger program at your school. So your application activities, this is an example of one. This is your lesson planning template. And the Module 3 application activity takes that lesson planning template one step further. So what you're doing with these application activities that really don't take very long to complete, you are taking your learning, you're applying it to your classroom, you are actually testing this out in your classroom and learning from it by revising your work afterwards, coming together as a community of practice and discussing what you did. And then you get to the community of practice. The community of practice is often described as the strongest, most helpful part of FAME because this is a school-based program. So you're working with your colleagues across your school, thinking about your specific context at your school, and really applying all of the work that you're doing. And the beauty of the community of practice is that it is truly personalized and unique to your school. So you're taking those concepts from the coursework and applying it to your instructional practices, aligning your course content to your local context. And you're going to hear that as a focus throughout the year, that we want you to focus on what works best for your school in your context. Because as we have learned, as those of us who work for the state have learned, every single county or district is different. Every single school is different as well. So we want to make sure that all of this work applies to you and your school and your classroom. You'll refine existing instructional resources, so this is a great opportunity for you to look at some of the work that you already do in your classroom, and also look at some types of standardization or collaboration across the school. A number of schools last year decided that they would like a standardized way for students to provide peer assessment and peer feedback to each other. And that was really helpful because it provided that basis for teachers to have a conversation about it. Because, you know, feedback sometimes looks different in math than it does in English or social studies or home economics, culinary arts. And so it provided a way for all of our teachers to talk in the same language about content that is very, very different. And then holding colleagues accountable for implementing new practices. So finding ways to support each other, whether it's collaborating with somebody who may have a little bit more content experience than you, or somebody who is uniquely skilled in peer assessment, or finding ways to get students to create these really unique products. So we really want to increase the collaboration within the school, and then ideally through the course, we're going to increase collaboration across the state. So you've probably heard that you have a facilitator at the school. There are 2 important people at your school who are, or sometimes more, who are liaising with me to make this work happen. And so you have your administrator who's participating, and you have your facilitator. Your facilitator is your connection between your school, your administrator, and me at the state, because I am working across the state with all the schools that are going through FAME right now. So I can find similarities, I can find other schools for you to work with, and really help you reinforce the work that you're doing. The facilitator is learning with the group. They are there for check-ins if you're having trouble, if there are issues with the technology, if you're not familiar with how to use the modules, or if you just really have questions for someone and you'd like to know, what you should do. They are there for you. They are the ones who plan and schedule the community of practice. They run the community of practice, and they are there to support you in your learning. And they also complete the documentation, because part of the CPD credit, and this is a 3 CPD credit course, one aspect is attending that community of practice. So it's their job to document that you have attended. So it's very important if you are, for some reason, not able to attend, or you didn't sign in, or whatever it is, your facilitator is the one that turns in that documentation. And then our next component is leadership support. So throughout the year, we'll be providing leadership support. Just as a side note, Maryland is currently the only state that provides leadership support in formative assessment work. So your school leaders, they're going to be learning alongside you. They're going to gain familiarity with the content. They're going to try to find ways to make connections to other work that's happening in the school or the district. They're going to monitor those barriers to successful implementation. So if they're at a community of practice and they hear, the way something is organized, or this policy is a barrier to our implementation, they are there to support, to listen, and reflect for you. And then they will be there during your community of practices as well. And we have a lot of people ask why we focus so much on leadership. It's usually people that don't work in schools, because those of us who have taught before or worked in a school know that for any real change to occur at a school, or anything new to be successful, it takes a strong leader to be able to understand and implement. And so for administrators to know what to look for, or to know what a formative assessment classroom looks like, they need to understand formative assessment well. To learn it, they need to be able to communicate with their teachers about what students are doing in the classroom. And to lead, they need to serve as lead learners, which they will be doing throughout the year. And then there is the last component, that is MSDE support. That is primarily me, but think of me as a connection between your school and different content areas. If you have questions about MSDE programs or content questions, I am happy to connect you with the appropriate contact, because I know how difficult it can be to find that right person. To give you an estimated timeline, again, this will be adjusted according to your school calendar. This is not standardized. Very little of this work is. The first module, you'll probably complete it during September. We hope to have people registered soon and loaded into the course. But your first module, you'll have a month to complete. Sometime during October, you will go through your Module 1 Community of Practice. Many of our schools have hold that during the middle of October, which is often PSAT day. November is when you'll complete the second module. December is the second community of practice, and so on and so forth. And so those dates will be decided according to your personal school calendar. So the course. this is what people have many questions about. The course is not quite ready to be launched, but I wanted to give you an idea of what it looked like in the past and what the basic framework looks like right now. So I will be logging in momentarily. But the new account, you will, if you do not already have a Blackboard account, then you will be given a generic password, and that will be sent out to you. The assignments, the application activities, those are loaded in the course. I suggest that you add those to your personal calendars. The due dates are really suggestions, but they need to be completed shortly after your last community of practice for that application activity. Your grades, quote unquote, this is a completion course. You either complete it or you don't. So your grades records the modules, so completion of the modules as you progress through them. Your application activities, you'll notice they're out of 100. It's either 100 or 0. It's complete or not complete, very simple. And then community of practice attendance, which will be turned in again by your facilitator. And then you'll also see discussion groups, and that is for sharing files, for creating discussions, and I will go ahead and share that with you now. Oops. And I just shared the wrong monitor. I apologize. Here we go. Okay, so this is the landing page. This year's course is called Cohort 2 Phase. So I'll go ahead and show you. This is what the course will look like once you're at it. So you have the home modules. This is where the modules will be loaded. We have an error reporting form, so if there are any issues that you have, please complete that. You have your application activities. So if you click on the application activity information, all of your application activities, including the due dates and directions, are outlined here. Then you can click on each individual application activity to actually complete and submit. You'll see the due date, you'll see the points possible, and the directions. You will also see the links to the actual PDF directions and the assessment grid activity that you will download. When you have completed, you will browse computer and upload a file. You can add comments if you would like, and you are able to upload this 3 different times. The reason that we have that is because a lot of people after their community of practice want to go back and adjust their application activity, and if that is the case, we would love for you to hand in a revised copy, because just like with the formative assessment process, we love to see the progression, your learning progression. We'd love to see how the work changes over time. So that is how you view and then submit your application activities. The next is reference materials. So we have a number of printouts that you can use. There are videos, which will be added to throughout the year. You then have your grade section. So you can see that all the application activities are in here. The modules will be in here as well, and your community of practice attendance. You have a calendar that has all of the application activity due dates in it, and you're welcome to add to it. And then you'll have discussion groups. So depending on what role you have, each different discussion group has access. So you have, for educators, there'll be group discussion board for each module, and then administrators and facilitators each have their own as well. So to go back to the main page, just to give you an idea of what the modules look like. This is last year. It will look slightly different, so I just want to make sure that this is not what you assume they will exactly look like, but they do open in a new page. You have to click play to begin the lesson. And as you progress through the module,
At the beginning of each module, you will be presented with information.
the colors will change to let you know what you have and have not completed. There's also notes section and resources for that module. Okay, so that is what the course will look like, and you'll see that as soon as we are ready to go. We're doing some bug reporting and making sure that the modules are error-free for you. And then just to end, before we start the question and answer period, just wanted to share some observations from our friends from Cohort 1. They will also be a learning resource for you throughout the year. They know that they are expected to assist with Cohort 1 or Cohort 2 attendees and participants.
It's the mindset actually of being able to put your thoughts into a grander idea and then building towards that idea is very helpful towards me when planning, which is an unexpected thing that came out of FAME was the assistance for me in terms of planning.
The assessment part, though, I saw this with our faculty too. When we first presented these ideas to us, what's the difference of formative and summative? And there's many people that don't see the difference. And I think back, like, did I really see that great of a difference, or did I care? So I think that's where I used to be. Now I can verify in my instruction that I don't have that many grades in gradebook anymore because I'm using more formative ideas to move them along towards when they have to have the summative, and I'm seeing growth. So I'm seeing it twofold. One is it's impacting my instruction a whole lot, but then secondly, I'm seeing within my students as well.
I love the fact that I can go into a classroom now and recognize teachers utilizing pieces of the continuum of learning that they're using. Goal setting, student goal setting, where they are. You can ask students, where are you in your progression of learning? And they can answer that. So that's a shift, whereas before, students may say, well, I have a C in this class.
What I've seen different so far is a spirit of collaboration. And within that spirit of collaboration, I feel like the group here at Lockerman has almost like their own language. They have a sense of comfort now among the group. And I feel that when Common Core came in, I think a lot of our teachers, our great teachers, lost their confidence in teaching and would come into a classroom feeling like, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, you know? And so this gave them a spirit of collaboration that they feel comfort with each other and they can share what's working, what's not working, troubleshoot. And I think that I'd like to see that part of FAME grow out.
Thinking back to when we first heard about FAME, Formative Assessment for Maryland Educators, my knowledge base was on formative assessment being a classroom exit ticket. It has since greatly changed through the modules and the community of practices, through discussions with teachers, administrators, and our district level personnel. I personally have now a greater understanding that formative assessment is truly more of a shift in instructional practice, not just a thing or an it that you do in the classroom. There's a lot of ways to implement it, and there's a lot of ways to go right with it. There's not this narrow little path where you have to feel like, oh, I'm not doing it right. Even though a lot of us here have said those words, but in the end, you know, that's constantly been my message to them has been, I don't think there's no, it's hard to do it wrong. You know, you're just trying it, and in trying it, you're going to figure it out and how it works for you.
My suggestion to other school leaders is that you find folks that are ready and willing to embark on the experience. It may be 3, it may be 17, but it's a start for a change in your school.
So all of those videos are on our YouTube channel. We also have our blog and a number of other resources for you to access. So I will go ahead. Oh, sorry, there are one or two more things I wanted to share. There we go. So you can find our YouTube channel. It is Maryland Formative Assessment, or the user is MD Formative. We have a number of playlists about FAME and formative assessment, and we have a number of videos, classroom videos, that you can watch great formative assessment practices in action. If you have not already done so, we have the registration page up and ready to go. It's important that you complete this very accurately and carefully. And with the Blackboard or the eConnect account, if you do not have an account, one will be created for you. If you do have an account, it's very important that you check to see that you can actually access this. Because we've had a number of issues in years past with this, so just making sure that you can actually access this page. We also have our blog. So this is our main blog with all of our general information. We have information about formative assessment, FAME, we have presentations, leadership information, but our special blog is our participant blog. And so this is where we put information just for people participating. So we have a whole page about feedback, because feedback is really the heart of formative assessment. We also have archived webinars, where today's webinar will be living after this time. And we have special information for administrators, facilitators, and teachers. So you're welcome to subscribe to the blog if you would like. And as you can see on the right side here, we also have our Twitter feed, so feel free to tweet us. We are very active. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone so we can ask questions. If you do not have a question, please mute yourself, and you can do that with the little microphone button. I'm going to unmute all, so please be aware you will hear everything that is happening wherever you are. So are there any questions before we move on? If you have questions that you would like to submit here in the chat box, you can do so. You can hear feedback from someone. If you can go ahead and mute yourself, that would be great. If you don't have any questions. You can also Are there any questions before we go? Melissa, where can I find some lesson plan templates that are already an exemplar to us? I'm sorry, I can't understand. Could you type in the chat box? I'm having a very hard time understanding. Okay, I'm going to start. Can you hear us too? Oh. Okay, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them in the chat box, since it seems like some of the audio is not working very well. And if there aren't any questions, thank you for joining us. We will be in touch very soon about registration and school folders. As soon as the course is up, you'll have your registration information. The registration site you can find from our blog. It is right on the participant blog. It is on the general page right here. But if you go to our general blog, which I think I closed, of course, I will put it in the chat box. You can register right here, right on the blog. You know it says 2014-15 in the title. Ignore that part because on the page it's actually, and it is a Google form. Let me see, where are lesson plan exemplars, models in making our lesson plans? So that is part of the application activity after the second module. And we do recommend that participants stay along with the modules and don't jump ahead because the learning builds upon itself. There's been a lot of research done about professional learning, and I know it's crazy, but we actually follow the research in our program, and so it does build upon itself. But you are welcome to take a look at the lesson planning template once the course is up and running. But again, without the learning to accompany it, it won't make as much sense. The Blackboard site is, I believe, yes, msde.blackboard.com. And what you can do, right now, you are not in the course, so you're not registered. As soon as that is up and running, I will send an email to all the facilitators and administrators letting them know that, that participants are in the course. Are there any other questions? It does not seem like there are. I will go ahead and stop the recording. Again, this will be archived and will be on the blog. And facilitators, if you have any questions, please be in touch. Thank you for coming today. We are excited to have you in this extremely rewarding and exciting program.